passengers per day. You can no longer walk around with paddles or notebooks or pieces of paper or cardboard signs. Each station will have a permanent sign. I'm going to show you a picture of one in a minute. The guests will already know on their tour ticket, you go to Station 1, Station 2, Station 3, Station 4. And when they get there, that station will be for their tour. It'll have the name of the tour and also the station number. Different ships will have different stations. So one of the things that the Taxi Association and the transportation providers need to understand is one ship's going to have a certain net number of stations and the other ship might have a different buying pattern. So that those signs can change. So the signs aren't permanent. They're in core drills. The signs come out of the pavement. We take them back inside, put out the new signs for the next boat. So because different days, those signs and those station numbers will change from time to time. Independent travelers walk into the terminal building. They may decide they want to go on a marine tour. They may decide they want to go on a land-based tour. Or they may decide that they're going to go shopping or walking into the city or possibly get the trolley that just rides around up to the point where Columbia Emeralds is in the intersection with Waterfront Street and Administration Drive. The taxi and bus staging. Here's the signs that we're talking about. Those signs will occur at every bus stop all the way along this drive. This is 2 lanes on this side, 2 lanes on this side. 1 lane has the stations, which are where, so you don't have to wait for the bus in front of you to leave. You just pull out, just like you do in an airport, you'll go around. So you've got a passing lane on both sides, and you've got 2 full parking lanes. These are designed so that we can put in 30 buses at one time for the first release. The public parking, this is the holding area in here. Eventually this will go from a surface lot into a parking structure. This is the holding area for 60 additional vehicles. So we can hold 90 vehicles in this staging and busing platform here. Okay. This shows you a section of that roadway. So you can have a building on this side with a pedestrian walk, a travel lane, a bus parking lane. Inside you've got, along this median here, you've got all these shelters so that if it starts to rain, the guests are either out of the sun or out of the rain by standing in these parking structures or shelter structures. There's the other parking lane, so the guests can board the vehicles. There's a travel lane, and then what you've got is the little trolley that's sharing that same pathway. So that just shows you kind of a typical section of the whole street. Restroom facilities and driver accommodations are done in this building. This shows you the shelters that run down the median. There's also a shelter on the VIP area. And that shows you one of those existing shelters, very similar to the ones we've just constructed in Jamaica. This shows you a bus staging area using a sign posting pattern and a shelter structure. This is in St. Martin. If you're familiar with that, they've done something very similar. They already just tell you that yours is at Station 2, Station 3, Station 4, Station 5. The guests who get off here, they have 8 ships. They have a design day of 34,000. Again, I wanted to show you an example that it does work even when the numbers get to that large a number. So they can facilitate 8 ships. We can facilitate our 2, but using a very similar system. Okay. The kiosks, the 10 by 10 kiosks, there'll be 1 on each side that are done for each cruise line. When the guests get off, the cruise line and their ShoreX will be able to give all the information they need to support the guests and the passengers, and also direct independent passengers to walk into the terminal building where they can go to the guest services counter. Parking and staging area, like I said, you got a travel lane in here. Buses can easily come in and stage in the parking area. As their station number is called by the dispatcher, once one bus pulls out of Station 3 and the next bus can go to those stations. So it allows us to have a staging and parking area that's out of the flow of traffic so that we're not blocking any of the roadways while we're still having moving traffic moving out of the site. Parking rooms. The bigger city plan is to allow the city to develop 2 parking rooms, one on the east side, one on the west side of the city. The idea is that the trolley would move around here in Phase 1 up to the intersection of Administration Drive and Waterfront. The idea, though, is that the trolley actually moves on and carries guests and residents of the city to these large parking rooms. Currently, the city is overrun by parking. As you can tell, people park on sidewalks. There's no green space. No trees are left. The idea is now you can hop on and hop off the trolley anywhere you want. So all of the parking goes here. We organize and we're working with town and country planning. There will be a parking system organized where you'll have legal parking spaces and illegal parking spaces. They'll actually do an enforcement program where people will begin to use these lots. That way we'll take 60% of the cars that currently park downtown in pedestrian spaces and on sidewalks, and we'll put them in those parking rooms. The trolley would then carry people back and forth. So the trolley system is actually meant for the residents and for the downtown businesses. Employees of a business here would no longer let their employees park on the sidewalks around, like the Scotia Bank building, for example. They'd actually have to go and park in that parking room and then take the trolley or walk, which is a very pleasant distance. The thing I wanted to illustrate really was that we put the trolley in place for all the places no one would take a taxi to go to. They're just too close. Nobody's going to get a taxi that knows where they're going from there and go over to Wickham's, or to go here and go to a Pusser's, or go to the ferry dock. So the idea is this is intercity transportation for residents, business people, and visitors to the city. If we can pedestrianize Road Town, we believe that the spending pattern for guests coming to Tortola will be in the $178 to the $198 per passenger, just as it is in St. Thomas. So if we can get the core back to being pedestrian friendly, we think that works for everybody. The conceptual trolley car looks like this. They're hop on, hop off. They're 20 passenger cars. They have a driver. They move on a fixed track in a pedestrian sidewalk and or brickscape that shares with the roadway. This shows you a profile, shows you the seating configuration. Again, it's hop on, hop off. It's a slow moving vehicle. It moves about 2 miles an hour, carries people back and forth within the city. The number of cars will be developed by the number of the amount of demand. When you've got special events and things that are going on in the city now, people will be able to park in those large parking lots and use the trolleys to go back and forth between the parking rooms. The trolley experience, again, like you see from this destination here, and this is how it shows in our street plan, that the trolleys move throughout the village and carry guests into the heart of Road Town. Trolley section on the roadway. This shows you how the trolley is dedicated here, and you still have 2 lanes of traffic. So it'll actually take up a space which is currently either a green space and or a walking space along many of the roadways that are in downtown. I did a little streetscape morphing here. I took this photograph last week. I showed you here's where a trolley path would go. You'll notice we've moved the sidewalk back into where the sidewalk, you'd see where it used to be over here. So we redesigned these intersections. I just did one for illustration purposes. So you'll show you where we now take up where the sidewalk is now with the trolley. It doesn't affect your travel lanes. Travel lanes stay the same. But Lisa, go ahead and show them where the animation goes. So we improved the sidewalk. We put in trees and landscape back again. The trolley moves through the intersection and moves towards the ferry dock. The trolleys can then also move back down administration back to the port. So we've also created the pedestrian-friendly atmosphere to now have that trolley move in that space. Again, the trolley transportation plan, it doesn't affect the way that guests come back to the drop-off here for taxis and tours. Same thing here, drop-off here at the green space in the park, second drop-off here for the prearranged tours, again, parking here. This just shows you again the 3 types of travel: ground, marine, and independent travelers. Benefits. Why do we go to all this trouble? Why do you think this far out? This doesn't have anything to do with the port. This really has to do with the city. Disney and NCL made a commitment to us as the port operators with the government, but based on one thing: the city had to be pedestrian friendly. To do that, we have to organize the distribution of all the tours and excursions and make sure that every guest that gets off has a good idea of where they're going. We don't want people lost. The old systems used to be in the Caribbean, and we've been doing this 20 years. You wanted them lost because people felt like they could take advantage of it and then begin to hand pick off people. No. An informed guest is a guest that's going to have a good experience and they're going to spend money. The last thing we want is somebody to get frustrated in the first 100 yards getting off the vessel. What do? They turn around and they go get back on the safety of the ship. So organized distribution is key. We're going to make sure that every tour, every excursion, and every operator has access to not only us, TPP and the Port Authority, but has access to the lines. So that's a little different model than what you've seen in the past. We're going to provide you through the information desk direct access to the lines. Tour operators with those lines will work with us as the owner, operator, and developer of the port. We will facilitate those relationships to make sure that it's an open port. An open port means that it's not restricted by any of the conventional guidelines. It is an open part of the city and becomes like a village within the larger village of Rotown. The guest services desk will operate with a tour dispatch person. That person will need to be selected through a process of working with the transportation groups. There'll be 3 persons behind that desk. One is assigned by BVI Tourism, one is assigned by the transportation providers, and one will be assigned by our TPP operators of the port. There'll be dedicated shoreside information kiosks. When the ships get off, first thing in the morning they do is the ship Shorex desk goes to their kiosk, sets up the information, the brochures, and the organized tour packages. The guests will then be able to go straight to those kiosks and get information. Every assigned station for pickups and drop-offs, your guests will know where they're going by the time they get past the kiosk or leave the information desk in the terminal building. No more guessing, oh, pick that car, pick this car, go look for this guy, go look for... No. All you got to look for is the station sign. And those station signs, as you saw, will be well developed and well numbered so that people can read them and know where they're going. Wayfinding. We're doing a whole wayfinding graphics and signage package when the guests are in the village and they're entering into the port. They'll see directions where restrooms are, ATMs, phones, taxi, tour, dispatch, marine transportation. Everything will be just like you would see in a modern airport or a modern train station. Nobody's going to be wandering around lost. We're also going to present and prepare tour excursion maps. Those are maps that were developed that we use very successfully in other ports. Y'all currently have a map that you use. We will either work and develop a new added map to that or replace that map with another one that will give guests the most information possible for them as a pedestrian in the city of Rotown. The last thing is the reason we're doing this for the bigger lines and why all the ships want to make this an A destination. The whole cruise industry has relooked at time, speed, and distance, and Tortola and the BVI falls right in the core of the Eastern Caribbean. Y'all are moving from a secondary stop to a primary stop, and the better customer service is the only way the ships will keep coming. We've got guarantees now from the 2 major cruise lines that we worked very hard to get here, which have the highest spending passengers, NCL and Disney. But the customer service is the only way we can get them to keep coming. So the idea is to make sure that the customer service, from the standpoint of them getting off the vessel and going through their excursions and working in the city of Rotown, works well. And that's our presentation. Please ask questions.
It's a good presentation. The honest problem I see with this proposed trolley system is that we run from little areas in Rotown with a taxi stand, taxi stand, transport.
You still recording? Because I don't want this part recorded. People are now rewinding and giving their advice. So if you can not record, or anybody else for that matter. Are you recording?
I thought it was all part of the meeting.
No. Don't record this. You know, these are individual business entities now weighing in.